I gave her everything, my heart, my songs, my soul. And she wrote, "He's just a pawn to make Nick suffer." My girlfriend used me to get back at her ex, but that was only the start. The truth was so dark it tore my life apart, leaving me drowning in betrayal, pain, and disappointment. My name's Aidan Russell. I'm 28, and I live in Seattle, a city where the rain washes away everything but memories. I'm an indie musician, working as a sound engineer in a Capitol Hill studio by day and playing smoky, neon-lit clubs by night, where the vibe feels like freedom, even if it's just an illusion. My life was like a rough draft of a song, messy, but full of hope. I recently signed a deal for my debut album with a small label, and it felt like my big break was finally within reach. I was standing on the edge of my dreams until I met Emma. She crashed into my life at a Fremont music festival, like lightning in a gray sky. Her blonde hair glowed under the neon lights, and the way she danced to my song was so alive I forgot how to breathe. After my set, she came up to me, her eyes sparkling as she praised my music. Emma was a freelance graphic designer with a love for vinyl records, black coffee, and old movies. We talked until dawn, and I felt my heart open like a door that had been locked for years. Our relationship moved fast. Within a month, her stuff started showing up in my apartment. Sketches on the table, her sweater on the couch, her laughter in every corner. She was like a melody I couldn't stop humming. I was in love, but I didn't notice how her gaze sometimes went blank, or how she'd hide her phone, turning away when she checked messages. I pushed my doubts aside, lost in her warmth. Love blinds you, doesn't it? The first cracks appeared quietly. She'd look away when her phone lit up with notifications. She'd disappear for hours, blaming client meetings. But her laptop stayed home, and there was a hint of dishonesty in her voice. I chalked it up to my own exhaustion from long studio hours, but the unease grew, like a shadow creeping into the corner. One night, she left her phone on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower. The screen lit up, and I saw the name, Nick. The message flashed too fast for me to read, but my heart clenched like I'd been punched. I didn't touch her phone, but a weight settled in my chest. Who was Nick? Why was she hiding him? A week later, the truth hit like an avalanche. I was in the studio, tweaking a mix, when my phone buzzed. Jack, my friend and guitarist, sent me a screenshot of Emma's Instagram DMs, passed along by a mutual friend. She was messaging a friend, saying I was just a way to make Nick, her ex, jealous. She laughed about how easily I fell for her act and bragged about waiting for Nick to come back. My blood froze. I read her words over and over until they burned a hole in my soul. Every kiss, every look we shared. It was all a lie. I felt like a puppet, strings pulled by someone else's hand. Anger and pain choked me, but I held back the urge to storm in on her. If this was a game, I wanted to know the rules. The next day, while she was at a meeting, I grabbed her laptop. She hadn't set a password, like she was so sure I was too blinded to check. In her messenger, I found her chats with Nick. She'd sent him photos of our dates, mocked my successes with sarcasm, and wrote, "He thinks I'm his, but you know the truth." Nick's replies were cold, but his interest was clear. In another chat with her friend Kate, she admitted she was using me not just for revenge, but for her career. She wanted to design my album cover to get her name in the credits and use my connections to break into the industry. I closed the laptop, feeling anger burn through me. My music, my dreams, my heart. She saw them all as pawns. Shame for my blindness mixed with rage, but I decided not to show my hand. I started collecting evidence, screenshots, recordings of her calls she didn't know I overheard. I wanted to see how far she'd go. The next few weeks were hell dressed up as normal life. Emma played the perfect girlfriend, and every move she made felt like poison. She made me coffee, hugged me, pitched ideas for my album. Her touches, which used to set me on fire, now made me sick. I smiled, hiding the storm inside, but her fakeness cut like a knife. She started mentioning Nick more, like she was taunting me, talking about his music tastes or his life, dropping it casually but watching my reaction. I played it cool, but inside I was boiling. My soul felt like a guitar string stretched to the breaking point, ready to snap with every word, every glance that now looked like a mask. I could feel my faith in love dying, but I kept up the act so she wouldn't suspect I knew the truth. The studio became my only refuge, where I could breathe. I lost myself in sound, trying to drown out the pain, but even there, her shadow followed me. I'd see her sketches on my desk, each one a reminder of her lies. She insisted on designing a draft for my album cover, and I let her, knowing she'd use it to show off to Nick. I caught her snapping a photo of the draft and sending it to him, bragging that she was working with a rising star. Her smugness was like acid eating at my nerves, but I held it together, planning my next move. Anger and pain twisted into a tight knot, but I couldn't let myself break. Not now, when everything was on the line. The first twist came when I got invited to perform at a big festival in Portland. This was my shot, the moment I'd worked years for, and my heart raced with anticipation. But Emma perked up instantly, her eyes gleaming, offering to come along to support me. I knew she saw it as a chance to push her plan, to use my success for her own gain. Her enthusiasm was as fake as a cheap stage prop, and my heart sank with disappointment. I agreed to let her come, but inside, I was plotting my counter move. I asked her to design a poster for the gig, betting she'd send it to Nick. She didn't disappoint. I saw her snap a photo of the sketch and send it to him, boasting that she was running my career. Her arrogance hit me like a slap, but I swallowed the rage boiling inside me like lava. I started noticing her leaving her phone unlocked more often, like she was daring me to catch her, testing how blind I was. My trust in her was crumbling, but I kept playing my part to keep her from taking control. My soul screamed in pain, but I knew I had to wait for the right moment to strike. 3 days before the festival, Emma got jittery. Her movements were sharp, her smile forced, like a mask about to crack. She checked her phone constantly, turning away from me, her eyes darting like she was scared I'd read her thoughts. My anxiety spiked, and I decided to dig deeper. I accessed her cloud storage using an old password she'd mentioned once in a moment of carelessness. There I found drafts of her chats with Nick. She wrote that she was doubting her plan, feeling guilty, but Nick pushed her to keep going, promising her a deal with a big label if she proved her worth by using me. Each word was like a knife in my chest. She wasn't just getting revenge, she was selling me out for her own gain. But the worst part was her confession that she almost loved me, but couldn't let feelings get in the way of her goals. My soul was torn between anger and pain. I felt my faith in love, in people, in myself collapsing like a house of cards. I noticed her avoiding my gaze, her voice trembling when she talked about the future. I realized she was scared, not just of her plan failing, but of me finding out the truth. That realization was like poison, slowly killing me, but I decided to use her doubts against her. I started asking about her clients, watching her squirm as her lies grew shakier. My rage was building, but I kept it in check, knowing my moment was close. The day before the festival, Jack sent me a screenshot of Nick's Instagram post. He announced he'd be performing at the same festival with a song dedicated to the girl who's always been his. The post included a photo of Emma taken in my apartment, in my living room, during nights I thought were ours. My stomach twisted like I'd been gut-punched. Nick wasn't just playing along. He was planning to publicly humiliate me to win her back. But in her chats with Kate, I found another bombshell. Emma was planning to stage a scene at the festival, pretending to choose between me and Nick in front of everyone to get her name trending online. She was plotting to draw bloggers' attention, using my popularity and the drama to paint herself as a victim for sympathy. My blood boiled. Anger and shame battled inside me, like two beasts tearing me apart. My career, my pride, my heart, everything was on the line. I remembered our nights together, her laughter, her touch, and now every moment felt like a lie, part of her script. I noticed her prepping for the festival, picking out a dress, rehearsing emotional gestures like an actress before a premiere. The pain was unbearable, like someone had ripped out my soul and stomped on it. But I decided she wouldn't win. I started writing a new song, pouring in all my pain, my rage, my resolve. I wanted her and Nick to feel that I wasn't broken, that I was stronger than their games. On the day of the festival, I got an anonymous message from a fake account. It had screenshots of Emma's chats with another guy, not Nick. She wrote that she was using Nick to break into the industry and that her feelings for me were almost real, but she couldn't abandon her plan. She was pitching to this guy, a producer named Michael, to invest in her projects, using my music as bait. My soul shattered. I didn't know what to believe, her claim of almost real feelings or her cold calculations. The pain was unbearable, like someone had ripped out my heart and crushed it. I remembered how she looked at me, how she held me, and now every glance felt toxic. I noticed her texting this Michael, bragging about my successes like they were hers. I found her notes in the cloud, planning to use my demo tracks for a presentation to Michael, passing them off as her ideas. My music, my most personal chords, were just a commodity to her. I felt my belief in myself crumbling, like I was an empty shell, used and discarded. But I decided this wasn't the end. I saved all the evidence, knowing it would be my weapon. I prepped for the festival with new determination, but the pain of her triple betrayal was like an open wound, bleeding with every step. Right before the festival, another betrayal broke my heart. Jack, my best friend who'd shared stages and dreams with me, admitted he'd known about Emma's plan from the start. He'd seen her chats with Nick a month earlier, but stayed quiet because he didn't want to hurt me. But I saw the truth in his eyes. He was jealous of my success, my contract, my shot. His words were like a knife in my back, sinking so deep I could barely breathe. I'd trusted him, shared my fears, my songs, and he'd hidden the truth, hoping I'd fail. I remembered how he'd cheered me on, patted my shoulder, and now every gesture felt like a lie. The world was collapsing. Not just Emma, but my best friend had betrayed me. I pushed him away, but the pain was like molten metal searing my chest. I noticed him avoiding my gaze, his voice shaking when he talked about our future. I knew he was scared I'd learn the truth, but his betrayal was irreversible. I decided I wouldn't let any of them break me. I wrote a new song overnight, pouring in all my pain, rage, and resolve. I called it Pawn in Your Game, a ballad soaked in the pain of betrayal and the strength of breaking free. The lyrics were sharp but nameless, so the crowd would see art, but Emma, Nick, and Jack would see the truth. I rehearsed until dawn, my fingers bleeding from the strings, my soul a raw scream. The Portland Festival was like a storm. The crowd roared, the air pulsed with music. Emma stood in the front row, her smile shining, but I saw the fakeness in her eyes. Nick lingered nearby, smirking smugly. Jack was somewhere in the crowd, and I felt his stare like another blow. I took the stage, adrenaline drowning out the pain. My hits lit up the crowd, but I was waiting for the final chord. When I started Pawn in Your Game, I locked eyes with Emma. Her smile faded, her eyes widened in horror as she recognized herself in the lyrics. Nick tensed, his confidence evaporating. I sang about betrayal, pain, and freedom, each chord like a gunshot. The crowd erupted in applause, unaware they were witnessing my revenge. Backstage, Emma approached me, pale, hands trembling. She tried to speak, but I cut her off. I told her I knew everything, about Nick, her plans, her lies, her triple game. My voice was cold, but inside I felt myself breaking free. She walked away without looking at me, and I felt the weight of her betrayal lift from my shoulders. Jack tried to approach, but I turned away. His betrayal was a fresh wound, and I wasn't ready to forgive. 3 days later, I heard Nick dumped Emma after the festival. He'd used her to boost his image, but had no intention of taking her back. Her plan collapsed, leaving her in a void. Meanwhile, my song went viral, and the label offered me a West Coast tour. I moved to Portland to start fresh. There I met Sophia, a festival producer. She was straightforward, with fire in her eyes and a passion for music. We started working together, and soon a connection sparked, pure and real, like a chord in the silence. A year passed. My tour was a triumph, my album hit the charts, and I became a known name. Sophia became my partner, in work and life. We bought a studio in Portland, where I recorded tracks and she organized festivals. Life felt balanced, but the past wouldn't let go. One day, I got an email from Emma. She wrote that she'd realized her mistakes, gone to therapy, and wanted to apologize. Her words seemed sincere, but I sensed a catch. I checked her Instagram. She was working at a coffee shop, posting photos with books, but her eyes were empty. Nick had vanished. His last post was about moving away. Their game had destroyed them, but I felt no joy, just emptiness. A month later, Jack forwarded an anonymous message from a fake account. It had screenshots of Emma's chats with someone unknown. She wrote that her apology was part of a new scheme. She wanted to use my fame, posing as a victim to land contracts. She planned to claim I abandoned her to gain sympathy. My blood boiled. Even after everything, she hadn't changed. The pain of her betrayal hit like an old scar torn open. A week later, I got an email from Nick. He said Emma had tried to use him to worm back into my life. She'd spread rumors that we'd reunited to promote her design project. Nick was exhausted by her games, but admitted he wasn't innocent. He'd worked with her to boost his own clout until he realized she was manipulating everyone. My soul ached, but I knew I couldn't let her ruin my new life. At a Seattle festival, I spotted Emma in the crowd. She stood off to the side, pale, with a faint smile. Our eyes met, and I felt a stab of pain, not for her, but for the old me. A day later, I learned she'd tried to get into the festival as a designer, using my name. The organizers revoked her invite when I showed them proof, but it didn't end there. She caused a scene at the entrance, screaming that I'd ruined her life. The video hit social media, and I became gossip fodder. My career was at risk, and the pain of her final attack was like a knife in my heart. The biggest shock came a month later. I started noticing Sophia, my new love, pulling away. She'd disappear for meetings, citing work, but her phone was full of texts from an unknown number. I didn't want to believe the worst, but Emma's betrayal had made me wary. One day I saw her laptop, left open with a chat. She was telling a former colleague she doubted me because my drama with Emma was hurting her reputation. She was planning to use my success to start her own label, keeping me in the dark. My soul shattered. I'd trusted Sophia, and she saw me as a tool. The pain was unbearable, like the world had betrayed me again. I didn't confront her. Instead, I wrote a new song, Broken Strings, about pain, betrayal, and loneliness. I performed it at the next festival, and the crowd went silent as I sang, then exploded in applause. Sophia was in the audience, her face pale. After the show, I told her I knew about her plan and walked away. She tried to follow, but I didn't look back. My soul was broken, but I couldn't let another betrayal destroy me. A month later, I got a package with no return address. Inside was the vinyl I'd given Emma, with a note. "You won." My heart clenched. I didn't know if it was her final manipulation or a genuine admission of defeat. But a day later, I learned she'd posted a blog accusing me of emotional abuse. The post didn't gain traction, but her words were another blow. I shared proof of her lies online, and her account got banned. She vanished from Seattle, rumors saying she'd moved to Los Angeles. 6 months later, Jack came to me with apologies. He admitted his silence about Emma's plan wasn't just to spare my feelings. He was jealous of my success and wanted me to fail so he could take my spot in the band. His words were a final blow. I forgave him, but the trust was gone forever. I left our band, choosing to go solo. A few months after leaving the band, I got a message from an old music scene friend, Tom. He warned me that Emma was back in Seattle, teaming up with a shady producer named Kyle. They were working on a project to blow up the scene, and rumors said Emma was using my old demo tracks, ones I'd shared with her early on, as the basis for Kyle's album. My blood ran cold. She wasn't just trying to claw her way back. She'd stolen my music, my ideas, my soul. The pain was like molten metal piercing my chest. I felt everything I'd built was at risk again. I contacted a lawyer to see if I could stop them, but proving theft was tough. I'd shared those demos with her, trusting her as my muse. I refused to give up. I posted an open letter online, talking about the theft of my ideas without naming names, but making it clear I knew the truth. My fans rallied behind me, and rumors about Emma and Kyle's project fizzled out. But the pain of my music, my most personal chords being used against me, lingered. I felt exposed, like someone had ripped out my innermost thoughts and put them up for sale. 2 months later, Tom told me Kyle had ditched Emma, taking all her ideas and my demos. He'd used her the same way she'd used me, to boost his own cred. Kyle's project flopped after my fans boycotted it following my letter. Emma was left with nothing. No contracts, no reputation, no support. I heard she'd left Seattle for good, trying to start over in New York, but her name was toxic in the music scene. I didn't feel triumph, just exhaustion and emptiness. Her betrayals, her games, her fall. It was like an endless cycle that drained the last drops of my faith in people. Today, I stand on stage, watching the crowd sing my songs. I'm alone, but my music is my voice, my truth, my healing. I started a fund for young musicians to protect them from the industry's traps. Emma, Nick, Sophia, Jack, Kyle. They taught me to value myself, but their betrayals left scars that'll never heal. I don't hold grudges, but I'll never forget how close I came to losing myself. My new song, Scars on the Strings, is an anthem for anyone who's survived betrayal. I play it at every show, and each chord reminds me I survived. What would you do if you found out you were being used? Would you forgive or walk away? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments.